comments is, well, I do really good when I'm standing on the range tee, and then I go on the golf course, and it's terrible. And one of the reasons that probably happens is on the golf course, everything's not perfectly flat and smooth like it is here on the range tee. So we need to figure out what happens when the ball is not level with our feet. So we're going to just cover these topics in 2 different weeks. We're going to do 2 of the shots today. There's typically 4 big shots that we talk about. If you get a shot that's a combination of the 2, you can kind of apply what you know about setting up for each of these shots to help you hopefully hit that shot better. So, looking at our cup lies here, so if I was faced with this kind of a lie, what would we call that?
Uphill. Side hill.
Above the feet. Ball above the feet. This would be ball above my feet. If I turn this way, now we've got our uphill shot. Obviously this one would be the opposite. This would be the downhill, and then ball below our feet are the 4 main ones. And these are great little tools because you can stand in one spot, hit all 4 shots, and you can actually, if we only go a quarter turn, I can give myself a lie that would be, let's see. So there we go, ball above my feet and downhill. So we can get some really crazy angles off of these tough lies. They're great tools to try. Those are ones that we don't necessarily cover. So today we're going to cover the ball above and the ball below. I'll start with just those 2. It's a lot of information, or well, some information I don't want to give you too much. And mostly what we're going to do to help with these shots is changes in our setup. Okay, so now, speaking from experience, what happens to you on a shot like this? Ball probably turns towards you. We'll say, I'm going to have to use my language wisely today since I have a left. So this ball will turn towards you, or I would say it's going to follow gravity. Okay? The low point for me is to my left, so this ball should curve to the left when I hit it. Okay? Now, let's say I was standing on flat ground, and these are almost as high as the turf, so this will kind of work. So if I was standing on the flat ground and I took my setup, you can see how far that ball would be away from me. Okay? Now, if I have to deal with the slope, what's the difference there?
5 inches.
Good almost, yeah, it's a good almost 3, 4, 5 inches there going from this position to that position. Okay? And the other thing you'll notice, I'm going to step on here now, Steve will be in the best place to see this. When I set up, what's one thing that's different about not looking at the ball yet. Angle of the club, yep. As I put the club on the ground, you can see I can almost put my entire finger under the toe of the club. Okay? Which means if I keep kind of that normal position there, and I swing through, I get a shot that really turns hard to the left, because as I hit it, the heel contacted the hill first and made the face close.
Okay.
So one of the adjustments I can make to help counteract that, and we won't always be able to get it completely flat, but what do you think that is? That's the way. If I choke up on the club a little bit, now as I set it on the ground, actually on that same plane as the slope. Okay, so again, if I'm on a very severe hill, I'm not going to be able to choke up enough to make it work. And when you get to really severe, now you're almost looking at, kind of as we talked about with rough, is that a position where I just need to punch it back out onto the flat ground? Okay, most of this stuff works for gentle slopes, or reasonable slopes we'll call them. Okay, so now, if I choke up on the club to make it interact with the hill better, what's going to happen to my shot? It should straighten it out, yeah. So if I take a swing on flat ground and I choke up on the club, what's the difference in the result? It's shorter. It does not go as far. Okay, so if you are choking up to allow for this lie, there's a good chance you may want to take an extra club, because it will change how far it goes. Okay? So once I've made those 2 adjustments, okay, so choking up on the club does bring me a little bit back closer to the ball than that difference in, that 5 inches that I was. But I still will probably be a little bit farther away. Now, the other thing I want to do is make sure that when I sit up to it, I'm leaning into the hill a little bit. If I get to the top of my swing and I start going like this, because that's what gravity wants to do, probably hit it thin or maybe hit it off the toe, something like that. So I will set up to this one and maybe feel like I'm just a little bit more biased towards my toes. Okay? And then, once I'm done with all of that, and Jerry and Joanne, do you want to pop back just a little bit?
I'll pop back a lot.
I'm fairly confident, but you never know. Okay? So we said this ball is going to curve towards me back to the left. So the last thing I'm going to do when I set up is I'm going to change my aiming point. So if I'm trying to hit this, kind of my parallel line here would take me about to like the peak on the top of the Pro Shop or that silver disc. I'm probably going to aim this almost at the right chimney as I set up to it. So when I'm doing my routine, I'm picking a target that's out to the right, so I'm going to try to hit it right out over this part of the edge, which is a little bit off to the right. Okay. I'm choked up. I'm still keeping ball position fairly normal because I don't really have to deal with a slope one way or the other. So I'll change my aim, balls at my feet, and now I can take my normal swing.
Wow.
I'm retiring after that one. It came down right on line with that round disc. Okay, so luckily I picked the right amount of curvature for my shot. Okay. Yeah.
So this ball is going in the, you're in the fairway?
I'm working the rough as well.
Okay, so what other adjustments do you make if you're in the pick rough with that change in?
The same things we talked about with rough. You may go with more even. That's where you would have the argument of, okay, do I take an extra club because I'm on choking up, or do I need to take a shorter club because it's a line? And again, you might actually aim that one a tiny bit further to the right, knowing that that club might get grabbed and close the face even more. So there definitely can be multiple adjustments you're going to make based on all of these conditions. So, yeah, definitely things to consider there. Okay, any other questions on this one?
You never try to, like if you're trying to play for the slope, play for the ball or whatever, you always still line up square to the target.
No, I did. I aimed about 40 yards right at my target.
Right, but when you do that, you're just aiming it, you're not, I mean, how do you, I'm just curious how your feet are.
Okay, absolutely. So if my square target line to the target, if my line to the target would be, I got my piece of wood right here. So that basically goes straight to my target, which was that disc. Okay. What I'm saying is my feet are actually going to be on that line right there. I just take my whole system and instead of being here for my straight shot, I'm just changing. You know, I always view aiming as a set of train tracks. So I've just taken my train tracks and I've just tilted them.
On the target line you're taking, your feet are still.
My whole body, I mean, everything is still pointed out to the right because that will make this ball start on this line instead of on the target line, and it will curve back to the right. So it is just kind of, if you picture, you know, around the ball there's a circle. I'm just kind of, I'm walking around that circle to change my aiming point, kind of keeping the ball relative to my center, to my normal setup position. Great question.
Rather than choking up, would you ever consider changing the angle of the club so that you can get it flat by making it steeper?
No. Because I think as soon as I do something like this, now I've completely changed how my body's going to react to that position. You know, and I want to be able to take a comfortable swing. So I would much rather go shorter. And you, like I said, you may not ever get it completely flat. Sometimes it's just you're trying to minimize the angle, and you can somewhat allow for that based on how far you aim it, right or left. Okay. Any others? Okay. Now it's y'all's turn.
We'll go to the right.
It should curve away from you. Okay? It should have a little bit of that fade motion. Now, I'll say this up front because I know what's going to happen when I demonstrate. Making the ball turn that way is not my strong suit. So I will tend to hit this probably fairly straight if I make good contact. Just because of what happens in my swing, I'm still going to get enough closed space on this ball to maybe make it go straight or even turn to the right. And there's also, a different scenario where it will turn to the right. So, two ways to approach this one. We'll say maybe one that works sometimes in some situations and sometimes it doesn't. So, if I did this, if I went wider with my stance and kind of really got down into it, what happens?
I'm gonna wait and see.
So,
Your-
as we were looking at the setup,
Your club's up in the air.
was that
Your club is
the toes way up in the air. So
Yeah.
surprisingly, just like it was on the upslope, if I do this adjustment, that toe was way up in the air again because of my hands being so low. So what's going to happen when I hit this one?
up.
It's going to go way, way, way to the left
He
because
hooked it. I know that shot.
that club hits right there and the face goes like that. Okay? So, going back to our original demonstration, I won't have to do it on this one because of where I am. So if I'm on flat ground and I set up, does that look about level with my feet, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now if I let my arms come down to the ground, what happens? It moves a lot closer to me. So when I hit this shot,
Need to stand
I'm
closer.
going to stand a lot closer to it than my normal position. Okay? I'm also, because I don't want to be on my heels, because that makes it hard for me to use my legs to swing, I'm also still trying to stay on the ball with my feet. So that's why this one's hard. It's a very uncomfortable position because I feel like I'm going to go that way. So part of the reason getting up there and letting those arms come closer to me, so now you can see how that club is almost on the same plane as the hill. Where before it looked more like that. So from this position, so again, I'm a little closer to it. I let my arms come in a lot tighter to my body than my normal. And from here, I'm just going to try to take my normal swing.
Wow, straight as an arrow.
Well, it didn't hook, so I'll take that as a victory.
Well, it almost looks to me, you know how I asked you about changing the angle.
Mhm.
It almost looks to me like you've changed the angle on this shot with your club.
Well, I have
Because you've moved
because
closer.
the hill has forced me to. It is. It's not something that, and maybe, I guess going back to this one, realistically it probably did change a little bit, but it wasn't something where I held it at full length and did that
Right.
with my hands. It still felt like, in both of these, I still feel like my arms are just relaxed in front of me. But again, because it follows from there all the way to here, definitely changes kind of, I would say it changes this space right here. Like a flat ground, with this club, my hand, that club's a full thumb and finger away from my body and my arms, there's space here. When I set up to hit this one, will be more.
Oh yeah, a lot less.
Much less, because to get the club to the ground, I've let my arms come in closer and see how, like I can't even get my hand in there now. So that did change, but it wasn't like an artificial change. That's just allowing me to get it to the ground. Okay. And I am going to hold this one at regular length, regular grip, and again, same ball position that I normally play. Closer to me, my arms are in tight, still on the balls of my feet so I can use my legs to hit the shot.
Wow.
Forgetting your swing and going to people like us, should we aim to the left some to take into account?
Particularly if your natural flight is a little bit of a right to left or left to right. you'll get this one a little bit exaggerated. Just like with mine, we saw that my natural flight is draw, so I had to make a much bigger adjustment
Right.
here than I do here. Same thing, if your natural motion is this way, you may have to make a little bit bigger adjustment there. Okay, any other questions on this one?
Kelly, I may have missed it on the uphill side, but on the uphill, were your feet, or was were your feet pretty much still in the front half of your foot on the?
My weight?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's the same. You're on the front on both uphill.
I'm on the balls of my feet for
Okay.
virtually any shot I hit. Whoa!
Okay.
I am trying to get the balls of my feet. I would say on the uphill, it maybe even feels slightly more exaggerated.
Okay.
I'm almost, see how my heels are actually almost off the ground a
Yes.
little bit?
Yes.
Just to put me in that, just a tiny little bit, and I can feel that when I sit up to it.
Okay.
Where on this one,
You're already
heels
leaning
aren't
out.
off the ground, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
you know, even just standing here, you can feel how the
Yeah.
weight goes to the front of your foot. It like slides to the front of your shoe, and that's a good spot to be in, because yeah, if I go, you know, and I see this a lot where it would be in this position, try and hit it. Well, now I can actually, my weight's on my heel, and when I try to swing this, I have to use all upper body because I can't push with my legs as easily when I'm on my heels.
Do you squat more on that shot because it's downhill?
I actually almost try to stand taller. As odd as that sounds.
Yeah, it does.
Again, because I'm trying to let that club come in close. If I squat more, now right away the heel, the toes off the ground a little bit. If I stand tall, I can let that club get on the same plane.
Gotcha.
I'll take that swing. Oh, there's going to be one bad one today. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's hop in and try this one. I followed my own advice today.
Yeah, you got it.
I thought about something that I just said. I let my path be a little bit more out to in on that. Like when I hit the first one,
Out the end is probably, out the end is probably my normal mistake. So that probably helps me on this shot.
so the first couple times I tried to hit it, I felt like I did my normal takeaway where I kind of pushed it straight back, and that produced a relatively straight shot. On that last one, I actually let it go out of way to create a little bit across it, because I know I can hit the back of the ball, there's nothing in my way. So when I did that, I go in here,
That too.
it produces
A little tiny bit of a fade.
a little tiny bit of a fade versus, I learn stuff every day. Now I'll do my regular
As if there weren't enough data points in your head.
right. Now if I take it straight back,
A little bit of a draw.
I'm going to call that one straight.
You were aimed,
I feel like
you
I'm...
were aimed towards the goalpost and the ball ended up,
Hold it. Okay.
and the ball ended up a little bit to the right.
Interesting. So now I'm going to have to turn around and try that same thing on the upslope and see if it here. Down. Okay, so this one goes away.
Okay, so you were aimed at the left edge of the clubhouse and the ball faded about 5 yards.
Okay. That's a victory for me. So when I'm taking it back, I'm actually picturing the club going out away from me to produce out the impact. Versus, again, on this one I'll just take the club straight back like my normal motion. Still same setup. I'm not changing anything about what I did at the beginning here. But when I go straight back,
Great time of day.
What's that,
I
7
think
iron?
the other one is 7, yeah. I think the out the in was more solid.
Okay. I mean,
Maybe.
9.6 versus 9.2.
Okay, so now we'll see if the same theory applies here. Okay, so this one I'm going to aim pretty far right, or left, yeah, right. I'm going to do my normal take back. Look up. Without the full swing, but
The ball flight was what you expected.
ball play was what I expected. Yeah, it was, the contact wasn't near as good. But this time I'll try to go.
Do you think on that last swing you ball hit closer to the hosel?
I actually think it hit on the toe
Toe?
because I could tell I was getting.
Okay, flip.
You know,
Okay.
it wasn't,
Okay.
it wasn't as solid, so
Yeah.
you didn't get it into the sweet
Didn't
spot.
get it in the sweet spot, but I think it was toe more than anything. But now I'm going to try to actually. I'm not going to aim quite as far to the right on this one.
And take an
I'm
outside.
going to feel like I take it outside in.
Pretty straight. A little bit to the left.
But see, I really felt like on that one I had to, like, I stood up because I knew I might hit it beyond the ball because of the slope. I like this one.
I irrigate a lot of golf courses that way.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
That was a very sweet shot.
He shot 91 last time.
Mm.
And yesterday he shot 79. I mean, it's a